Hey everybody, welcome back to Talking Story. Welcome back to Talking with Tubers. I am so thrilled tonight to have Matt from Matt Fantasy Book Reviews joining us. I have got to come clean. I said I was going to do this on the stream. I'm going to absolutely come clean. I'm so inspired by what you've done. Such a fan of your channel. I'm going to use the steel word. There's several things that I have just completely wholesale taken from your channel, Matt, and done on mine. So I'm not going to call it stealing because I'm coming clean, and I'm hoping that it's the best form of flattery.
it's certainly taken that way. Thanks, John.
but I'll go into it later about all the things that I've lifted from you. The list is actually large, but some of the things I absolutely love about your channel. Like right away when I found your channel, it's got that man on a wire feel where it's like, and I'm done. And it's like, boom. It's like, it's just your visceral thoughts of how the book hit you. It's not pre-planned. It's unvarnished. It's raw. And it's just so real. And it's like, I can't get enough of it. I absolutely dig it. And what made you kind of come up with, this is the way I'm going to do it?
I mean, I kind of started my channel with some intention. I mean, I think there's several reasons for it. One of them was that I didn't want to start a channel if I was going to be just another one of the channels of people that I like. I wanted to provide something different. Otherwise, I should just keep watching the channels that I normally watch. But I want to bring something different to the audience. And I thought to myself, I wish people had reviews like that. I mean, yeah. You've got like Brian Lee Durfee who does something pretty similar. I mean, I think he doesn't do it right when he finishes, but you can clearly he has no notes, right? And just talks.
I'm going to edit this out. I'm going to edit all this out.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, and I love that. And so I thought, for my professional life, I have to talk without a script. And, I have a lot of opinions and that could be my format. And the other reason is that I try to look long-term and I don't like to get into anything unless I'm kind of committed to doing it. And it's like, I know that I will get burnt out if I spend a bunch of time doing something that I don't want to do. And I don't want to script. I don't want to edit. And what I want to do is communicate. And so if I establish that baseline real early on, I'm going to make this a really no fuss channel, then I can make it so that I actually continue to have fun with it and don't end up a scenario where I feel like I'm doing work. I want to make it so it feels like a hobby, which I think, I'm a couple years in, it still feels like a hobby to me. I never feel like, oh man, this sucks. I got to go do this boring thing now. It's like, no, it's just, let's just do some 5 minutes of editing and ship it off. And then, so yeah, it's kind of a self-preservation thing, but yeah.
So you never have that, I got to get another video out. It's always fun to you. It's always a hobby you enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, I know that the amount of videos I'm going to put out are about how fast I can read my books with some other content sprinkled in here and there. And the other content's really there for if I have free time and want to make a video, but I never feel obligated to it. I mean, I feel obligated to doing my book reviews. That's what my channel is a book review channel. And so it's real easy. Just finish a book, hit record, ship it off. And then if I have more time, I'll do some other cool stuff, but I don't need to feel like I need to do it.
It's not easy. It's such a gift you have. Not many people can just hit record and be that affable on camera and comfortable and have their thoughts put together like that, where they can just riff for 15, 20 minutes from what they just read. Like it's somewhat rare. It seems that way to me anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not something I was born with. I mean, for my job, I work, I'm a chief of staff for a politician, and a lot of what I've done in my job is my boss says, hey, I can't be here. You got to be me. Go to this room. You're talking about energy policy and answering questions. You got to give a speech for 10 minutes and just go do it. And so I've learned over time how to talk without too many ums and pausing and making up stuff and trying to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. So it's kind of, I feel like I've had my career has kind of make it easier for me to be able to do something like that.
Wow, that's awesome. I just want to point out a few people in the chat real quick. We got Kindles and Kicks would like you to know that your lighting is on point.
Thanks, man. It comes at a price. I have lights blaring in my face about 2 feet from me in multiple directions. So it's
Brian, Jacob is going nowhere. So you can just stop. No, hey, what is that? What is that?
What do you mean? What's wrong?
You're going nowhere. You are going nowhere. All right. Oh, Bards of Books. Hey, how you doing? Brian is here. Samoki Dude is here. Acid Unicorn is here. So, okay, let me come clean on the first thing. I absolutely loved when you did this. And so many people do it. So many people go, okay, I'm going to go over every book I read in 2023 and, rate it or rank it or, little quick reviews of everything, right? And it's like, I thought that was really cool. It's like, I should do that. And you did it with like a timer in your lap. And to watch you like slowly unravel as the video went on and you found out just how short 20 seconds could be per book. I just was laughing my ass off. I enjoyed it so much. So it's like, I have to take that, but I just can't take it. I can't take it completely. So we went and got a Nerf gun and Jacob timed me. And if I went over, he would pelt me with darts.
I watched it. Yeah, it was an awesome video.
Dude, that was all you. That was all just from watching you and going, that looks like so much fun, and it's the blast. I have to do that.
Thanks.
So,
yeah, that it's one of those ideas. I don't know if you ever have this where it just kind of comes to you randomly. And I had this concept of like I want to do a recap video, but in true form to kind of what I like to do is I want to make it different. And I was like, man, what I was about to do was I was about to make like a 10-hour long video of let's just talk for multiple days and just put out this insane video and make everybody be like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah. And then like the day before I started recording it like in the middle of the night, I remember waking up and being like, oh man, what if I did the opposite of that?
Yeah.
It'd be so much less effort, but probably even more entertaining. And then it turned out kind of fun. And so I kind of made it a yearly tradition of mine now. And I've noticed a few channels have played with that concept now. And I formed my channel off on watching people like Patrick and, Mike and these people that made these videos and being like, how can I copy and change a little bit about what they're doing to mimic the success that they've had? Right. So to watch people doing it to me feels full circle. And I love it, man. I wish I could be a resource to people to, help them out, even though the algorithm has no idea what, it doesn't care about that kind of thing. But, but yeah, I think imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And I certainly take it that way.
Oh, perfect. And the weirdest thing, like D, who I saw in the chat a little bit earlier, and go to bed, D. She's in the, I don't know if you met, D is great. Check her out.
Yeah.
Okay, she's in the UK, and we did a stream with her, and she stayed up so late. She said some things that were just like unbelievable. So she should probably go to bed. But she hit me up in some comments somewhere and go, hey, can I borrow? I like the way you do this. Would you be offended if I take this or do this? Like, oh my God, I've stole so much from Matt. And other people like take everything take everything you want. I'm just happy to be on the other end of that. So to hear you say that is super cool. Like that's something that I've learned so much, like you say, from watching Patrick and Mike and, the community is just phenomenal. Like I would have never guessed in a million years the openness in the club that I was joining when I first started.
Yeah, it's a overwhelmingly positive community. And I don't know, because I don't venture into other parts of BookTube, if it's a BookTube thing or a fantasy readers thing, but it is extremely positive. And, I come from this political environment where half the people I run into are angry for one reason or the other. So to be in an environment where everybody is supportive and nice, with very few exceptions, is very cool. And I just love this aspect of people where they can be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. I totally disagree with you on this. but in a very kind way. Here's why. Here's where
Yeah.
we disagree, and here's I hope your next book is a fun read or something like that. And it's such a welcoming environment. It's very heartwarming.
I think coming from theater for me, it was just so different. Like I can't believe how welcoming everyone is. Like it was just phenomenal. And Jacob's messing with my microphone, so I'm a little freaked out. But yeah, someone said I'm a little soft, so I think he's trying to fix that. Thank you, Acid Unicorn. He's working on it. So let me do another thing that I kind of took from you, Matt. So we'll see if you feel about it. Okay, so I love the way, like I said, you're unvarnished, unedited. Just you sit down and do it. It's like when I do a book review, and I find myself doing less and less lately because there's just I just don't have time with the other stuff I do, but I don't script anything out. I never have. Like I'll get a little Post-it note and it's like, this is how I want to rank each section that I do. I do like 5 sections.
Yep.
And then what that adds up to. And then I just go. And I think that keeps the fun to it for me. Like you say, it keeps it less. If I took the time to write out my thoughts and get it just right, and I think it would become more like a job for me.
Yeah, I mean, not only would it seem like a job, but it's very evident when people are reading or whether they are talking. And it's a very different presentation. And at least for me, I obviously some people disagree, and I don't mean to hurt people's feelings that have a different philosophy on this, but like if I wanted to consume some content of somebody reading something to me, I'd rather read it. Put it up on Goodreads and I'll happily read your review. I don't need the production, but if you're going to use this medium of video, then do it in something that cannot be replicated in a written format, at least in what my preferences are.
Thank you so much, Slay. That's very kind. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I like some people that are very scripted. They put their thoughts together, and it's like they always look like I think they have more on the ball than me. Like they know what what they're saying. That's one thing that always blows me away about you, Matt. Like I mean, for someone that just like closed the book right there, you're always so organized with your thoughts, and I think it comes from how you were explaining your profession. Like you're probably analytically used to thinking about that. Because I also go ahead.
No, I mean that's half of it. I think the other half is that I read, even though I read, it seems like I go through books very quickly, but that's not because I read fast. It's because I read a lot. What's really happening behind the scenes is I'm taking notes while I'm reading, and I keep. I use an e-reader, but I within the e-reader, I have one of the ones with like a pen, and I'm taking notes throughout the book. I'm keeping another, page open where I kind of write the synopsis of it as I'm reading it so that, when it's a few months later and I read the next book in a series, I can refer to my notes and catch up, and I don't need to have that 100 pages of what's going on again. And the act I find of writing out my thoughts while I'm reading helps me memorize things and helps me able to discuss it, because it's like, well, I've already been over this in my own head before.
Right.
It's not the first time I'm having this discussion. It's just the first time I'm having the discussion with my mouth.
Yeah. That's so interesting to me because I've tried to do that. I saw on Joanna's channel actually about she keeps a journal, and it's like, I need to do that. I should do that. Why aren't I doing that? And I find it's so hard for me. I'm that guy when I go on vacation, Matt. Like I don't stop and take pictures. Like luckily my wife is there, or I would never have a picture ever, right? Of my kid, of my trips, or anything. I just want to be here. This is where I am. I don't want to stop and take a picture. So when I really get into a book to stop and take notes, I just have to get more disciplined about that.
Yeah, it's very helpful, especially in fantasy, because especially if there's like maps and stuff, it's very nice to be able to like show the character paths and where people are. It really helps you understand better about what's going on. Especially books that don't have like a character listing, be able to write out a little bit about each character and who they are. So when you run into their name 200 pages later, you can look back and be like, oh, that's who it is.
Yeah.
So And then more than anything, especially for somebody like me where I don't binge read series, to keep my channel a little more fresh, I think people would find that boring. I like to, I'll read a book and then I'll put it in my TBR 3 or 4 months down the line for the next one.
So
and that's a long time.
Months. I usually wait like a month. Like I'll try and do one a month and then break it up with other stuff. But you go 3 or 4 months.
Oh yeah, I go 3 or 4 months, and that's a long time, and that can make a lot of things be forgotten.
Yes.
So the notes makes it possible to be able to do that.
Right, especially when you're reading as much. Like you read what, 7 to 10 books a month, right? Maybe even a little more.
Yeah, I mean, probably around 110, 120 a year.
I mean,
so about 10.
Many, yeah, with that many, it's hard. It's I have, I got old man brain, so it's like it's hard for me. That's why I got to get better.
Yeah, it's once you get into it, it becomes I mean, maybe everybody's different, but for me, it was very difficult to do at the beginning, but then I saw the payoffs of it, and it became very, very enjoyable. Now, if I read a physical book, which is rare for me now, it's like if a publisher sends a new book and that's the only way I can get it, then I'll just get a pen and paper with me and take it around with me because I'm addicted to the process now.
Wow. Okay, I got to get better. Yeah, Matt, I'm stealing it.
I like it.
I gotta get better. I gotta get better. I want to do this because I love these videos are everything to me. I got to talk about these. Just Heidi reminded me, and Heidi's the best. Your videos that you do with your wife, and I guess you guys, it's your wife's friends, or both your friends?
It's both our friend, yeah.
Okay. Red, thank you so much. You're unbelievably kind. So we're of a similar age, right? I'm definitely older. But do you remember the Charlie Brown cartoons when you were young? You watched Charlie Brown, Halloween, Christmas, that kind. Every time I watch one of these videos, man, it is you at that moment when Charlie Brown's face is going both ways when people's talking to him on both sides. That's the only thing I can picture. It is like the most controlled chaos fun that I see on the internet at BookTube. It cracks me up every time, and I'm so happy you guys are doing it again.
Yeah, it's very fun. That's the more realistic version of me behind the scenes, and what my life is.
Yeah,
and my kids have the same energy, and so it's a lot of loud, chaotic fun, and it came together very nicely because I've always mentioned to my wife, never pushed her, but like, if you ever read a fantasy book, I have an idea for you, but she's not really big into reading.
Yeah.
But then she got hooked into Fourth Wing, which is great. I don't particularly love it, but reading's good and whatever you like.
How bad was it really? Like really?
It was not
I know
good.
you gave it a 2. Were you being I just can't imagine I could get through that. And I could be wrong. I might love it.
No, it had some positive aspects to it, but I feel like the 2 was deserved. But when she read that, and I was like, well, I promised you that I would review a book with you if you ever read a fantasy book. So I got committed to doing it. And then right before, literally as we were about to shoot the video, my wife's friend invited herself over because she heard that we were going to do this review. And she's like, no, I'm going to be in the review too. So she just popped in right before we hit record and we went with it. And it turned out like a really fun chemistry. And so now we're going to do a thing where every month we go back and forth. Where they read one of mine, I read one of theirs, and try to get that different dynamic to it. I find that when you get panel discussions, and we see this in politics and sports talk, and where if everybody says the same thing, it's pretty boring. And so naturally, we're going to severely disagree with each other. And
you're not saying the same thing. No one's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's so great. I just realized we did not answer your question, Matt. What's your thought on pre-orders, Matt? Do you do pre-orders or you wait for release dates? How do you do that? What's y'all's thoughts on pre-order? Do you pre-order books?
I used to be a pre-orderer. If I didn't have a BookTube channel, I would still be a pre-order person. But just admittedly now, I just write to the publisher and have them send me a book instead of buying it. But before this, I definitely was a pre-order guy.
Yeah. Oh, I got to steal that from you too. I'm still a pre-order guy.
No, I mean, you'd be surprised that it just requires a little bit of effort on your end. Like they would never just naturally send me a book. The only reason they send me a book is because I reach out and I say, hey, I do reviews. I want to read this. And from the publishing side, they would love that. I mean, there is a person that already knows they are predisposed to like this book. That's why they're asking for it. Mm-hmm. They can almost guarantee they're going to probably get a positive review, or at least a passionate one. Mm-hmm. And they want to get that book in your hands. And most of the time, these publishers, when they're sending out books, very few of the people they send them to are actually going to review it. They're just mass sending it out, hoping that something sticks. And so if you're telling them, I will read this book, they're going to send it to you almost every time. And it's pretty easy to find the publisher and find the right person. You just send off a couple of emails and they'll probably get rerouted to somebody else. And before you know it, it's on the way.
Okay. All right. Stealing that too.
Yeah.
See, these are, I've got these books. I've got 2 of them. I'm waiting for the book 1 to come in. I've ordered it. I have heard so many things about these, and I've heard so many things about these from you, right? The second Apocalypse books.
I read the first one. I'm going to be reading the next one at the end of this month. I think the first one is one of the greatest books I've ever read. And notes are very important. Although I will say that on a series like Second Apocalypse that has such a strong fandom, that you can find a lot of those resources online pretty easily. The notes thing becomes even more important for a series that is not popular, where you know that you're never going to be able to find the summaries out there. Right. You know, like there's no reason to make summaries for a Sanderson book. You know that there's a million of them out there.
There's wikis galore. Yeah.
So, but yeah, Second Apocalypse has a very comprehensive wiki and stuff like that helps. But it certainly is one of those books where you're going to read slow if you want to actually understand what's going on, because there's a lot coming at you.
Like really dense, or is it just like the philosophy of it, or what do I have in store for me? What can I expect?
Have you read
this was one of those books, and these are books that I love that when you review a book that it's like it hits you so hard, like the last Sun Eater book you reviewed, when you it almost seemed like you couldn't organize your thoughts, and you're just like, just go buy the book. Like I just love that when that happens, you know.
Have you ever read any Malazan, John?
I have Gardens of the Moon. And when I started the channel, because I was trying to find authors I hadn't read before, because I was kind of in a rut, you know. And so I just started looking on BookTube, never done it before, and to find some new writers. And I had never heard of Brandon Sanderson. I had never heard of, I was just like in my little bubble, you know.
Yeah.
And so now I'm trying to catch up on all of the Cosmere. So as soon as I get that big thing done, and my goal is to have it done by the end of this year so I can go to Dragonsteel and get the new Stormlight book and read it with everybody else.
Yeah.
As soon as I get that done, I'm starting the next big series, and I think Malazan is going to be it. Malazan and probably Wars of Light and Shadow. I might go like back and forth like every month or so, going just to break it up a little bit.
Yeah, so
but I have not.
But the things that you've probably heard of Malazan are the same things that you would hear about the R. Scott Baker stuff, where it's not hard, it's dense. There's a lot of info, and it doesn't hold your hand. You know, it's a small little aside, like it'll bring up some religion, right? And if you were to go look up that religion online, and this is all sourced out, you would be able to find out every person involved in that religion, you know, who's in charge of that religion, what religions does it clash with, you know.
Oh, wow.
An intense level of detail. And if you like to understand everything as you're reading it, which I kind of am that kind of person, you got to slow way down. Otherwise, you know, you're going to miss a lot, which is fine for a lot of readers. For me, I like to understand everything I'm reading.
Yeah. So that might be one I let go over a month, like a couple months in the background, and just not try and blaze through it.
Yeah, you got to just read with a little more intention. You got to think about every word. A lot of books, you know, you know what that paragraph's going to say before you read it. And, you know, your eyes can kind of scan through it and you didn't miss anything. On something like a Malazan or Second Apocalypse, I'm not as smart as those guys. Not even close. And, you know, I got to take my time trying to figure out what they're trying to hit me with.
Yeah, because I always try and get like at least 100 pages a day, and it's like that sounds like one I wouldn't be able to do that with. There are just some you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a goal? Like, do you try and stick to a goal for you? Because you are so like, I love it when you start the month. It's like, I should finish this book on or around this date. Like it's so well planned out. It's so well organized. And I've heard even when you started your channel, you were like, I had it planned out to where I had these many followers on Goodreads and I could move them over and everything. It's like, I just feel like a silly child running in the field when I hear the way you built your channel.
Yeah. I mean, I have, undiagnosed OCD. And I've had it my whole life. And the way it manifests itself is that there's usually something in my life where it kind of invades, and I can use it for good, or it can take over in a really bad way.
Right.
And what has happened over the last 5+ years is it's been applied to my book reading. And the way that kind of comes out is that I have goals on what I want to read. I have, I like to keep data on what I read. I like to keep a long-term vision on these are the books I'm going to read. And unless I do that, it becomes not fun because my brain is thinking about these things all the time. And unless I write it down with intention, I can't release my brain into the fun aspects of reading. So
it could possibly creep into like, I'm trying to get to sleep and my wheels won't stop spinning.
Totally.
If you don't have it laid out like that, you would start to have that type of situation.
Yeah. Or like I'm driving home from work and I can't turn on the radio or listen to my audiobook because I got to go over everything in my head over and over and over again. But if I have it all laid out, I know I don't got to worry about it.
Right.
So for something like this, what I do at the beginning of the year is I have a really intense spreadsheet on all the books I've read and a bunch of data that's mostly useless, but for me, it feels good to put it down. But one of those data points is how much did I read that day? And that becomes my rolling average that's in front of me when I open up my books that day. I can see this is the average that you've read this year, and it slowly changes. And so I like to say, I'd like to read that much every day. And what that does is it makes it so that number kind of steadily creeps up a little bit throughout the year, because I like to hit that number and it makes the number go up. I like to, in my head, I'm like, I want to at a minimum hit that number. Right. And what that number is, it usually hovers around 160, 170 pages a day.
That's a lot.
And if I don't hit that number, then the next day I go, I want to make up that time and I want to hit it. So because of that, I know exactly when I'm going to finish books, right? Like, yeah. It's easy to plug in the numbers and figure out what your words per day is and how many words in a book. And it makes it so I can do fun things like a TBR contest where I know exactly what I'm going to read and when I'm going to read it.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, you're a much faster reader than me. For me to hit 100 pages in a day, it's all priorities, but I find I watch less TV. I do less. Gaming is just kind of fallen by the wayside, because I'm trying to get pages read. But wow, 160. So if someone is a fan of Pillars of the Earth, would you say, Matt, Second Apocalypse would be a good read for them?
They have a similar tone. They're both very dark reads. I happen to rank both of those books, at least what I've read of the Second Apocalypse, as all-time favorites. Really? They're different genres. I mean, Pillars of the Earth is historical fiction, but it reads like a fantasy. I've thought, like, if there randomly was a dragon in the distance, Pillars of the Earth would be
a fantasy,
a total fantasy book. Or a Game of Thrones without the Red Witch, or the White Walkers kind of thing. I would guess that there's a pretty heavy crossover between people that like both those things.
Okay, awesome. Now, I know you've read Hob because I'm watching your 100 favorite and it keeps popping up, right? I bought the first book because people tell me, hey, don't think of it like a maxi series. Think of it as a trilogy, lower commitment. Just do the first trilogy, take some time, do the next, whatever. So I have the first book and I am getting to it and I can't wait because I have so many people like you have so many of them on your favorite list.
Yeah, it's an incredible series, but one of the ones where, it can be rather divisive because it's not like a normal fantasy book that you'll read. It's a very character heavy plot, a little drier on the plot. It's about the growth of a character. It's about a boy growing up into an old man over time. And
Sounds amazing.
life and how to deal with pain and tragedy and pick yourself up again, and how to live with how to grow.
Mhm.
And there's fun plot things in between, but that's what the book is about. And if you're into really fast action heavy books, it would almost be a chore. Thankfully, I kind of like a lot of things. I like fast books, but I'm also every now and then to read a book that's a big character study is a joy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you got to be into that kind of thing, though. And
I think my time from the theater breaking down character like that, I think I would absolutely adore it. And
Yeah.
she's one of those writers. The more I hear about her, it's like, how have I not been reading her for decades, for years? Like,
yeah, I think a lot
how is
about
that in my blind spot?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has different tastes, right? But I find that there's some opinions out there that are kind of universally held.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being that Robin Hobb is one of the greatest character writers in all of fantasy. Whether
That's
you
what I
like
hear.
her writing or not, everybody can agree with that statement I just said.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, then you're going to eat it up.
Yeah. Okay. I'm all in. I got to get to it sooner than I was even thinking. Somebody else that we both love. I'm behind you. I think you may be caught up. Have you read Disquiet Gods?
I have not. Sun Eater is one of
So
those
you're up
books
to-
where I'm getting hit because I'm going slow. I only read a book every few months.
Right.
I just finished up I still have to read Ashes of Man
Right.
and Disquiet God. So I'm probably 6-7 months away from getting caught up.
Okay. I've just read Howling Dark, so I'm definitely behind you.
Yeah.
Well, I just read Queen Amid Ashes, the novella, because I was going to his signing. I went this past week, and I wanted to have the 2 full books and 2 novellas read by the time I met him. And this thing is just this has just struck me, this series. Like, I mean, I know we've all heard how sci-fi sometimes is more about concepts and ideas. Epic fantasy would be more about characters sometimes.
Yeah.
It seems like he's cracked the code to get it all.
Yeah. I mean, Rockio almost feels like not a real person with how gifted he is.
He's the kid, and I say kid because to me he's a kid.
I mean, he wrote the books you're talking about when he was in his early 20s.
Yes. I mean, he wrote Empire of Silence when late teens, like 19, 18, 19.
And that is not fair.
That's not right. That's just not right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the very few authors where I feel like are in that category of they are able to make a living, but they're not at that big level yet, where I feel like he deserves to be there.
He deserves to be on every shelf in every bookstore, bestseller shelf. The philosophy, the concepts, the character work. I think the plot work took an enormous step from Empire of Silence to Howling Dark, because he got that foreboding sense of otherness that's overlapping several layers of it that are overlapping all of the action that just keeps the foot on the accelerator and drives everything forward. And then even he's got this expansive story of empire and plot and concept, and at the same time he will take the time in this last novella I read to reference Hadrian hears his father's voice coming out of his mouth when he is tasked to do something he doesn't want to do, right?
Yeah.
That just stopped me. It just struck me, because I'm of an age where I take comfort in seeing my father's face in the mirror or hearing my father's voice sometimes. And I never thought I would get there. I never thought I would reach that point. And to have that reflected back at me in literature like that, it's like he's on a different level for me.
Yeah, it's and the thing about it is that's just Christopher, right? I mean, you went to a signing of his. The way he can just talk is on another level. From how humans are wired to talk and think. He's got this memory and the passions he has and the skills he can draw up on a whim is very more than impressive.
Yeah.
And I read this series recently. I do this as part of my Patreon. I do this thing, or not. I don't even think it was Patreon. I do these contests all the time where people can find a way to get me to read their favorite book. And recently, I got told that I need to read this book, part of the Verkosigan saga, by this author Lois McMasters Bujold, who wrote the books in like the 80s, maybe some in the 90s.
Oh yeah,
and
she's been around for.
She has, and the guy who recommended it to me basically just went to Christopher Rocchio and said, "Hey Matt, I won this contest. What should Matt read?" And Rocchio said I should read this Verkosigan saga, and it's very clear where he got his inspiration for Sun Eater, on the way to blend amazing character writing with this fantasy sci-fi kind of blend. And I find it, at least so far, I like what Christopher's done with it more, but it's cool to see where that inspiration's come from. It's not entirely unique, but he's mastered it.
Again, we get his work. I mean, I won't see the end of it, but he's got his artist journey has got 30, 40, 50 years left, possibly, like that's astounding to me. That's just astounding.
And he doesn't appear to get that writer's block. He's busting out these books every year.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And D, what's astounding to me is your kindness. Thank you, my dear. And if you need to go to bed, because last time we were late on a stream, you referenced yourself as a 2-bit whore or something like that. That's how late it got. So I don't want to hear that again, D. I won't hear it. I was talking to Rocchio, and he said something that I absolutely have to read is, and I mean, maybe you've heard this too, Matt, is Witchy Eye. Have you heard of this?
I've never even heard of it.
Okay. Christopher Rocchio was telling me about this when we were talking at the signing, and I'm getting these books because if he's like,
was that Rocchio that told you that, or his friend
Rocchio,
that
both
we
of
were
them.
with? Oh, okay.
Yeah, his friend that's in the chat too, George, told me about it, and so Rocky's going, no, this guy's a genius, and no one's reading it, and no one has seen it, and it's kind of like what Tolkien did, but he does it in America. He creates a fantasy land out of America all the way back to the Native Americans, then forward. Andrew Jackson was king for a while, and then this happened, and it's like he's created this entire fantasy world out of this alternate type of history, and there's 4 books. He says they're all absolutely genius. And the guy is kind of disillusioned, not sure if he's going to put his 5th out or not because no one knows about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I'm not a huge channel, but it's like, I absolutely want to read that and see what if Christopher Rocchio says the dude's a genius, like I want to read that.
Yeah. I can't imagine how frustrating it's got to be for an author where you make this your career, and there's not the strongest correlation between, at least from my opinion, on excellent writing and the success that you'll reach as a writer.
Yeah.
So to put your heart and soul in something and nobody's reading it, and when they probably should, is got to be the height
Can
of
you
disheartening.
imagine? So horrible. Like I know my time in LA doing the acting game is like, I saw so many people like that dude is jaw-dropping, enormously talented, and for him to get work, it's like winning a lottery.
Yeah,
like the arts are tough, man. The arts are tough. So without spoilers, who has better character development, Hadrian or Fritz?
Fitz does.
Okay,
and it's not fair because for Fitz, you meet him in the first book as a little boy, and by the time the series is over, he's an old man. So you get to have this time growing throughout life that makes the character development a lot. You spend so much more time with this character that it's and to watch that literal growth happening is it's definitely got to be Fitz.
Okay, wow. Now I really can't wait to get started. So I did not host D&D sessions when I owned a comic store. I should have. Now you make me want to go back in time. Your Blood Meridian review got the funniest public response I've seen in a while. Rocca, I missed your Blood Meridian review. What did you think of it?
I thought it was one of the worst books I've ever read.
Oh, are you kidding me?
And I ripped it to shreds, and I got
Matt, are you serious?
well, I mean, I don't like that kind of book, and I thought it was something else.
Yeah.
And I read it and I went like, this is probably genius. I don't get it. And I hate the experience. And I just went on and on and on ripping this book. And to this day, every day I get some sort of hilarious hate comment, which I love. I mean, I have always loved, I don't go out of my way to try to like trigger people. But when somebody gets so angry that they have to just vent, I just get such a kick out of that. And so I'm still reaping the rewards from that review every day.
Yo, yeah, that'll last a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that the beauty of it, though? Because we all come to it with our past experience and what's inside of us and our souls and our spirit, and then it reflects upon us and it hits us or it doesn't hit us, and it's never going to be the same one person to the next,
Yeah.
So
I mean,
all opinions are just as valid because it's a completely moment. Like, people are always saying, I put my Stephen King list out. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the comment, how come Pet Sematary isn't on this, And I'm like, I read it when I was so young. I had no idea what Stephen King was doing. I didn't know he was writing about parenthood and grief and your heart walking outside your body and then coming after you. And, and I just didn't get it. I thought the big bad at the end was a toddler that I could drop kick across the room. It didn't scare me, so I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So, but now if I read it now, I bet it would make my top list.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of liking books is like, what was your mindset when you read it? What life experiences you had when you read it. You could read the same book twice a year separate and think totally different things about it.
Absolutely. That's the beauty.
Yeah, that's totally the beauty. It's a piece of art, and art's very subjective.
Yeah. So I'm wrapping up Empire of the Damned now. I know you've read it.
Yep. What do you are you able to say like your overall opinions on it?
Love it.
Yeah.
I loved the first one, and I love this one maybe more because I think it just broadened everything.
It's extremely good. I
Yeah.
mean, and I don't like, I mean, maybe I do now. I didn't like until now. I thought vampires were kind of a very weak character for literature. And I grew up in that time when a lot of girls I went to school with were reading, Twilight. And I was at that angsty part of my life where I'm like, this is probably dumb and stupid. And anybody that likes vampires is also dumb and stupid. And vampires are not dumb and stupid. They are terrifying.
They're terrifying. They're terrifying. And have you ever read Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice?
I have, although it was a long time ago, but
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. For me, I love the character of a vampire because it just amps up everything, every examination of what makes us human and how we tick. If you spread that out over eternity and you can just keep going and going and going, it just becomes more and more and more sweeping and grand and operatic. And I love it as a character, So for me, these books, to mash that into an epic fantasy structure, it's just off the chart. Like, I just absolutely love it. I'm telling you, I have been looking forward to talking to you all day long, but in the back of my mind, I've got like 40 pages to go in the entire book. And it's like, I cannot wait to wrap this book up, man.
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, a lot of the vampire media that I've consumed over my life involves a vampire in a very limited setting. And to see an epic, sprawling fantasy that involves these characters is so different from what I'm used to. And just, it works so well.
It absolutely does. And it's such amazing world building in this deliciously dark gothic world where there's no day. Like, I just absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I haven't read Jay Kristoff's other trilogy. Have you?
I hated it. I hated it. And I read it after I read Empire of the Vampire, and I was like, oh, I'm a huge Kristoff fan.
Yeah.
And then I read the first book on that, and I'm like, this is really bad. In my opinion.
Sure.
But but I thought it was horrific.
And we love your opinion. That's why we all tune in, because you give it to us.
But then so I got a little bit jaded on Empire of the Damned, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I'm not going to like this. Maybe Empire of the Vampire is a one-off. Nah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think so either. I really, really liked it. What, Brian? What? All right. I just love this, not only because of your kindness, Brian, but, because of the Rick Thunder. And that's a fact. Have you seen Rick?
Yeah, and you're going to have to start doing this channel full time with the money you're raking in here, John.
Jesus, well, I don't know what's going on, man. This has never happened. I'm pretty sure it's you. I'm pretty sure everyone thinks this is going to you.
I will tell you that I have done some live streams before, and certainly didn't get that kind of response. So yeah, good on you.
I have no idea what's going on. But everyone is extremely, extremely kind. Let me say, before we run short on time, I absolutely have to say another thing that I just really love about your channel, and I've tried to bring it into a little bit of my channel, right? And I'm sure you're protective in a way. I'm sure there's things that you don't put out there, and nor should you. You're a private person. But I feel like I know you. I feel like I know you coach soccer. I feel like I know when your sniffer isn't working right. I feel like I've met your dog, I've met your wife, I've met your friend. And it's like there's just such an openness to what you do. And you're so well known, everyone's like, oh, he gives the most honest, he's got his integrity, he gives his honest opinions, but at the same time, it's like you're such an open dude. I just feel like I know you. That's why I can't stop tuning into what you do.
Thanks. I mean, I definitely go for that. I mean, I am not a very private person. The only things that I'm private about are my political beliefs, because I work in that sector and I talk about them every day. So I don't want to bring that part of my life into my channel, nor do I want to be divisive on something where half the people are going to agree or disagree with me. Sure. And the only other one is like my address. Everything outside of that, I'm open. I want to, and it kind of goes with the idea of my channel is openness. Mm-hmm. But I'm more than happy to talk about things that most people aren't. Not trying to lead this discussion there, but like on my channel, I find that a lot of people aren't very open, and mm-hmm. I totally get it. And whatever you got to do your thing. But for me, I don't have that. So I'm more than happy to talk about taboo subjects like how much money has my channel made? What do sponsorships look like? Why do I do sponsorships? These sort of topics that aren't talked about ever, because people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to bring that out. I'm like, no, I don't care. Let's just... It's just... Like
I found that just completely eye-opening for you. It's like, wow, this guy is completely just an open book. And I mean, I thought it was enormously refreshing. And I've tried to bring some of that in, starting to include Jakob with a microphone and talking back and forth and what's going on and that kind of thing. It's like, that's yet another aspect of what you do that's kind of inspired me. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
No, thank you. I love hearing it. I spend a lot of time on this. I'd like to have a relationship with the people watching. And, I think part of that is I can open up, but people can open up to me. We can talk, be friends, and not have this kind of guarded thing up where it feels like this is some sort of job or business relationship. I want it to feel like, because I feel this way, like I'm friends with the community. They can be friends with me. I'm not some scary figure where you can't come talk to. The whole reason I have this channel is so I can talk about my favorite books and have people that want to talk about them.
Yeah.
So that goes into it.
Same. Did you find, I mean, I think I have heard you say before, like you don't have friends out there that read these kind of books, although, you're changing that now with your wife and your friend. But same thing here, that's why I was having a hard time finding new writers or doing that kind of thing. Because when I was younger, I was tuned into this great group, and we were always going to bookstores on our days off and talking and going to signings and finding new stuff. And I just had lost that,
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how open this community, and not just the other booktubers, but People like Heidi and just so many people. Josh, they have actually like, hey, this book really touched me. I loved it. I wanted to send you one. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the kickoffs for me to start a channel, I don't remember what the book is, but I read a book that I really enjoyed, and I was like, look, nobody's reading this thing, or very few people are reading it. I went on to like Reddit. I made a post on like the fantasy subreddit about it. Nobody commented on it, and I was like, I literally have nobody that I can talk about this book with. Like literally nobody in the world I can talk to. And I had this idea, and I'm like, if I had a YouTube channel, I don't think like Patrick has that problem. He just reads a book and talks about it, and then there's undoubtedly people that have read it too, or we'll then go read it, and then we can talk about it. So I was like, look, I just want to talk about my passion with people, and this seems like a very convenient way to selfishly get my goals met. And so I can constantly have reading buddies that are into the same thing as me. And so it's made it very, very nice. Cause like you said, none of my friends read fantasy. I doubt any of my friends even read fiction. So it's, if I want to talk about them, that's the way I got to do it.
Yeah. Same. And it has been the best ride. Like, I know you get one every once in a while that didn't hit with you. Right. And you let us all know. This year for me, this past 10 months, like the worst, the reads that were disappointing to me, and I can only think there's been a couple, there's stuff that I picked. Like I thought, I've liked this author in the past. I mean, everything else I've read from everyone else going, read this, has been just phenomenal. Like it's changed. My reading is just off the chart. Every book is just like, wow, that was really great.
Yeah, I mean, I do this thing on my Patreon where I do like a wheel where
every month you spin the wheel
and almost always it's a banger.
Yeah.
And it's better than something I would have picked out. Because in general, people are pretty smart and people can watch things and pay attention and say like, Matt would probably like that. I have these opinions about other people where some other YouTubers that I like, I'll send a message to every now and then. I'm like, hey man, I watch your stuff. I bet you'd really like this. You probably never heard of it before, but it's right up your alley. And so when people are able to do that for me, it's super welcomed, and they almost always know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And the only dark side or downside for me is it's like, I can't read everything fast enough that I want to. And then, amazingly, people are giving me these things that I should read, and I absolutely want to get to them. And it's like, I'm trying to crank through somewhere between 6-7 books a month, and I still can't get, it's almost like I still can't get to, and I feel like I'm sometimes letting people down by not getting to it quick enough,
Yeah. When I was newer into reading fantasy more seriously, I ran into this problem where it's like, I want to read the books people are telling me to read, but I also still have the best hits to get knocked out. And so I kind of feel like I'm getting close to that point where I've knocked out a lot of the best hits.
Right.
And so I can start kind of focusing more on these specialty books, which is an exciting time for me to finally be close to that.
Right. Doesn't that feel amazing?
It does.
Yes.
It definitely does. Now, I'll never get there fully, but being able to be like, if I go read a Reddit thread of the top 100 fantasy series, I've probably read most of the top 50, so it's a nice, it's a better way, at least from my brain, to be like, now I can venture out a little bit and find the Sun Eaters.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the Sun Eater becomes like a big thing. Like that'll be everywhere. But it's like, see, I've only read the first trilogy of Abercrombie stuff. Like I can't wait to get to the standalones. I'm trying to get through Sanderson stuff, and I still have Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, and that that's probably a good half a month.
Yep.
It's almost I gotta clone myself. I gotta have more hours in a day.
You got to clone yourself. You also need to figure out whatever it is. It just being at peace with the present reality.
Yeah, that's not always my strong suit. Yeah, okay, I'm reading the Belgariad right now, David Eddings, that Heidi sent to me, and I will tell you, you do like some of the Rift War stuff. I've seen you like some of the Rift War stuff. This is kind of like that. It's a bit more juvenile than that, a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I find it to be absolutely magic because it's that stuff. Like, I grew up reading C.S. Lewis and T.H. White and Tolkien, and, you know, those things hit me just at the right time in my life that made me who I am. They made me love this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this, and it's just completely taking me back to that time, making me feel like this is a gateway drug. If I had read this at the right time, this would have changed my complexion for all time after, right? So if you haven't read it yet, it's a good time if you go into it that way.
Yeah, it's one of those series like I was just talking about. You know, if I go look at a list of the top 100 fantasy series of all time, it's going to be on every single list.
Oh yeah.
And so it's definitely on my longer term list to get through. You know, I worry because you know, I think you find over time you know what you like and you don't like. And one of the things that I don't like about myself, but I find that a lot of older works I don't like. And I don't really know why. I can't put my finger on it, but I recognize that bias within myself. Now, there's a lot of exceptions that will just be like, oh man, this could have came out yesterday and it would have been on fire. But
Yeah.
I worry about some of those books like Belgariad, where it's like, you know, I if I was a betting guy, I'd say, I'll say like, oh, you know, I could see why people liked it. I like some things about it, but I'd rather go read more stuff that was written in the past 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. I could totally see that. And I know you're a Wheel of Time fan.
Yeah. I think I become less of one over time, the more I get distanced from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I loved it when I first read it. But I've read a lot since then that have been what I view as better than that. And it more concise, and we're able to hit the themes that it hit in the world building in a lot less words, which is hard. But I still think very fondly of the Wheel of Time. I don't know if I'll ever reread it.
I think I'm at book 6. I think I read too many in a row.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a different flavor. I just wanted to, you know, and I just got this channel going, and then I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm having the hardest time going back, you know, because I know what that flavor is, but I don't know what Robin Hobb is. I don't know what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been reading this series that you've likely heard of called The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill.
I'm starting a buddy read of that next month with Dr. Chase.
And, you know, I look at something like that, and it to me, it's like he learned all the things from the Wheel of Time and then improved on almost all of them.
Wow.
You know,
okay.
And so when I read the Wheel of Time, I loved it. You know, now that I'm reading other things, it's like, you know, I've been reading a lot of stuff that's like that, but better. But I still think extremely fondly of Wheel of Time.
Yeah, I have promised myself this year I'm picking up I'm getting back. Even if I read one of, you know, just the next book, I'm going to get back this year. I have to.
The Wheel of Time's got this cool thing too, in that it's so popular that it's easy to have a lot of time in between them because there's so much stuff. There's this super cool phone app you can get. I don't know the name of it. You can find it. Where, you know, there's so many named characters in Wheel of Time. You can you write in what book you're on, and then when you type in a character's name, it'll tell you everything you need to know without spoiling anything about that character.
Yeah.
Which is just a godsend.
I found something like that I was using when I went through it, because there's just so many people. Like you know, it's even while I was actively going from one book to the next, I would have to use something like that.
Yep.
Because there's just so many people. My 2 favorite booktubers, so I had to throw this up there. Question for you both. What is a book series that has ruined that subgenre category for you because nothing will compare?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been ruined before on a genre, because even things that are my favorite things I've ever read, it never like, I don't get that reading fatigue that some people get.
I don't
And
either.
I just like reading.
Yeah.
And, I think the closest I've ever come to it was reading Malazan. I don't think I will ever read a series that accomplishes what it accomplished, but it's never soured me towards things that are trying to be similar to it by any means.
Yeah. For me, like, I mean, we were just talking about Sun Eater. When I read something like that pushes the boundaries of what I think the genre has done or can do, it stands on the shoulders of the giants of the past and yet pushes the timeline forward historically of what that genre can do. It just makes me want to read more, because if it's getting pushed, it's going to get pushed and pulled in other directions from other artists, and it just makes me want to do more and more and more and go seek more and more people out there. And that's what's happened to me with Wheel of Time, Joseph. Now, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm not saying it might not make my all-time favorites list someday, but I just wanted to try different flavors so badly, and now I just haven't been able to make it back. I've gotten lost in the candy store.
Yeah, I mean, even though I just said that I don't think for me that anything will top Malazan as a favorite series, I think when I look at it, in all things in life, the boundary is always getting pushed. What we think of as the greatest sporting achievements of all time,
they'll all
be overcome someday.
Yeah.
And, I think a very similar thing exists for books. Now, sometimes your nostalgia can make it so that that's not possible. And something like a book where there's so much personal preference in it, there's no clear and fast, here's the best thing. It's all about my favorite thing. So nostalgia can play a big part. I find that that's a lot of the reason that people still say Lord of the Rings is their favorite series, is the time that they read it and the memories they have of it and the way it made them feel when they read it.
And who first handed them that book, and who, it's all personal journey. And that is such a beautiful way to experience art. It's amazing.
Yeah.
How caught up am I right now? I've just finished Queen Amid Ashes.
What'd you think of Queen Amid Ashes? Were you a fan? I know it's very different because it's so short.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm kind of like you. Shorter stuff sometimes doesn't always hit with me because I like a longer form.
Yeah.
And I think a short story or a novella is really hard to conquer because you got to be so concise. You have to be so pointed. It has to hit so quickly. There can't be any fat to it. And I thought Queen Amid Ashes did that for me.
Me too. It's one of my favorite novellas I've ever read.
Yeah. It might be up there, and I liked it. I had gotten used to it being a little bit of a different, like a side character, like Crispin, or I expected it to be something like that. And that I got more Hadrian that spoke to me, where I'm at in life. And because, I mean, he'd be older than me because of all the, but even though he's not, it's a weird situation.
Yeah.
But, and how is that young kid writing that to speak to me? Like, it's weird, man.
No, it's bizarre. I mean, he has not acquired the life experiences to be able to write something like that, or shouldn't have been able to.
Here's my take, and tell me if you think I might be onto something. He got his degree in literature, and I think he has experienced so many lifetimes by putting himself empathetically in the shoes of these other characters and walking through their lives, all the way back to the Greeks and Shakespeare and Marlowe and all these kind of things. I think that's what we're seeing.
I think so too. Even then, understanding what's happening, it's hard because, I'm a well-read guy. You're a well-read guy. I can't process the information I get like he does. And so it's just mind-blowing to me to see somebody that is so ludicrously above and beyond what I think of as the height of brain power.
Yeah.
It's hard to comprehend.
Yeah, and I mean, and you sit and talk with him for a while, and you do feel like, oh, I got to be on my game. I'm not, I'm not going to be able to keep up with this guy, So yeah, he is really on it. Which brings me to another question. We were talking a little bit about this before we started.
Yeah.
You said one of the things you want to do on your channel coming up this year is more author interviews, because I know you interviewed Pirate Abba and had a great time.
Yeah.
And then you said, but you know, tell me why you feel like you would have to build up to that, or you have to get confidence for that. But I think that's what you said was confidence.
It was. I mean, I don't really know what my hang up is, honestly. I mean, for a while, I convinced myself my hang up was that I was embarrassed by my audiovisual setup for my lives. When I was I didn't have the ability in the way that my camera's set up to use my camera for my live videos. Now I do.
Yeah.
I just had a webcam on my computer that was very, very poor. And now I've solved that problem. And, you know, I still could be picky about my audio. I can't use the same microphone for various reasons. But I feel comfortable enough to be able to say I can do that. And I do, you know, it's part of my job. I literally interview people a lot.
Yeah.
I talk to important people for my job a lot. You know, I don't have any problem, you know, running into the governor of California and chatting about policy. And
that seems to be like, I would, you know, I would mess my pants in that situation. You know, like that seems like you'd be a natural.
Yeah, I mean, but a part of it is like I don't view those people as more important than me. I've seen the background where I recognize that political figures are no different than you and I. They just happen to have convinced people to vote for them. But they're just normal people. But for some reason, I've convinced myself that authors are not normal people. And I know that's not rational, but in my head, they feel like on a different plane than me. And I need to, and then I worry about embarrassing myself. I suffer from a lot of, I try to fight through it on social anxiety where, you know, I don't want embarrassing things to happen to me or to others. I try to live my life not causing that feeling in people. And, you know, so for something like books, I'd worry about that. And I also have this thing where, you know, I don't want to be a normal channel. If I wanted to be a normal channel, I wouldn't have a channel because I would watch the other channels.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't want to do an interview. I don't want to be the 50th guy that's interviewed Joe Abercrombie and asked the same questions that he's answered a million times before. You know, I want to be the guy that interviews Pirate Abba for the first time and can be like something different. Yeah. And so, you know, I'm still, I think, figuring out in my head, how can I do interviews that will make me feel like they haven't watched it, the same thing before? And what can I do differently? Yeah. You know, and I'm still battling with that. I think one of the answers I have is that, you know, I it's part of my job. I've done a lot of opposition research on people. I know how to dig. I know how to find nuggets of people's lives that people probably have not ever talked to them about before. Yeah. And maybe that can be my niche where I can ask an author a question and they go, okay, I've never talked about that before. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just need to do it. And I think I've built it up so much in my head that I need to just get through it and do some interviews with people that I like, but that I know will be open to it. Yeah. Somebody like a Steven Erickson, where they've been on everybody's channel before, and they.
What an amazing thing for you, the way you feel about that man's books, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I need to I feel like it's one of those things where I just need to do it and then I'll get comfortable. But it's hard. I mean, thankfully I was able to make time for this interview. It just happened to line up nicely, but quite frankly, you know, doing this channel is not even close to the most important thing in my life.
I get that. I do get that.
The important things in my life is my family and spending time with them and being a coach and making money from my career. And this is I've got some spare time, so I'll do this. Yeah. And living on the West Coast, it would be hard for me to find time to do that sort of thing where I wasn't interrupting those important things that I value more. And so I feel like there's an answer here somewhere. I just I got to figure it out.
Well, just completely selfish on my part. I want to tell you, I would love to see you do more interviews, because I think the pre-thought and the organization and the planning mind that you have to set up the way you would want the interview to go, and the affable, open, conversational person that I see over and over again on the channel that makes me keep coming back. I just think it would just for me, for my selfish reasons, I would love to see those interviews with some authors that I love and that I look forward to loving.
No, thanks. I got to do it. I mean, I look back on the only interview that I've done with the Pirate Aba one, and I felt like it went really well. You know, I was pleased with the product that ended up coming out of it.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of prep, and, you know, it took a lot of time to try to get the questions that I feel like would not make it feel like a waste of their time.
Yeah.
So I just got to do it.
And we go back to that thing. It's more, it becomes kind of a job, and I get it. I really do. Yeah. Well, you know, Matt, I got to tell you, I just thank you so much for giving the time tonight. I know you got some things going on with your family, and I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into the danger zone with that, because I know they're important. But I did have one last question here that I thought was really fun. Here we go. Yeah, hit me with this one. Matt, Red Rising 1 and 2 or Sun Eater 1 and 2? And I know it's easy for you.
Oh, yeah, so easy. It's Sun Eater. I mean, I'm not a huge Red Rising fan. I didn't hate it. Didn't love it.
Yeah.
I do understand why people love it. It just didn't hit the right chords for me in what I'm looking for in a book. But yeah, that's a super easy one.
I would as well have to say Sun Eater, but it's not as easy for me. For me, the second trilogy of Red Rising is to watch this artist's journey of where he started with Red Rising and then end up, and it's not even over, to Lightbringer. I just love that, watching that journey, not only of the character, but the writer as well. So not as easy to answer for me, but I would say Sun Eater.
Yeah, I need to keep going. I read the first 4, and I didn't like the 4th book as much as I liked the 3rd book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it introduced multiple POVs.
Mm-hmm.
It felt, I say this knowing that everyone that has read this tells me that I'm wrong. And I'll admit, I don't know if I'm right, because I admit that I'm wrong, because they know and I don't. But it felt to me when I read that 4th book on, like, why did the author write this? Mm-hmm. It felt like the story was told. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
when I read
it
I just had this feeling of, like, is he doing that thing that authors do where they can't give up a series, where they, you know, they've written themselves in, they know it's going to make money, so they're like, let me make up a new story. And I felt like that in the 4th book. Now, everyone tells me that when I read the 5th book, I won't feel like that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I got to just read the 5th book and just be done with it.
I can definitely take those points, how that would come across, but for me, it expands the universe so much, and being the point of view comes from each of a different color cast, and you see how this has affected each of it, and then the way it grows into, you know, these people now having to rule, kind of like, and you know, from A Life in Politics, the dog that caught the car, like, crap, now we got to actually take care of people, you know,
right?
Like it's, and I found it just to be absolutely fascinating, and I really enjoyed it. And I just love the Darrow at the end of Lightbringer is like that Macbeth at the end, looking back at that upstart rebel that went through all this and caused all this. And I just really like it. But I would have to say Sun Eater for me edges it out.
Yeah.
So, all right, Matt, you are one of my inspirations. I'm going to keep stealing from you. I'm going to keep watching you. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time away from your family and spending some time with us tonight. I want to thank everybody in the chat. You have been unbelievably kind tonight for me and had great questions. And it's just been such a lovely journey reading so many things that you guys have recommended to me. It's changed my life in ways that I honestly, I just can't tell you. So thank you all so much. We're going to do jazz hands while the stream stops, because it always takes a few minutes. But Matt, thank you again, my friend.
No, thanks, John. I found that you've been a very bright spot on the new kind of class of fantasy YouTubers, and it's been it's almost been embarrassing watching my early videos compared to your early videos on the how good you're doing things. So I can't wait to watch the growth of your channel over the years.
I will take your word for it because I don't watch any of my videos. And there's no way I can do that. I'd be a puddle in a corner. So I'm not that brave of a man. So I'll take your word for it. Everybody, good night. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Keep reading.